Okay, welcome everybody. It's our introduction to Jupyter notebook workshop. We did this last year, I believe, and this is our first hybrid Jupyter workshop. No, I think, yeah, first hybrid one. And I'm Prasad Madhumaki, and I'm from Research Computing Center at FSU. Let's see what Jupyter notebook is, right? I'm sure most of you have heard about it or used it a little bit at least. So Jupyter Notebook is a notebook running in a web browser. Okay? Although it runs on a web browser, it doesn't need an internet connection. The web server runs on your computer, your laptop, or whichever platform you're running. Either if you are running it on cloud, then you need internet connection, but even then it's local to the cloud. And you can have like code and the output, or even like single commands and the output, and along with text or like visualizations, plots, or like interactive objects, everything in the same notebook, so to speak. So in other words, it's sort of like just more than comments. You know, when you write a program, right, you put comments, right, just in text form. But in this case, you can have more elaborate comments. So I will show you an example in a later, but you can use this to like do your research or explain your research to somebody else, or present an idea, or even build a workflow. Can somebody close the book? Jupyter Notebook is mainly popular with Python, but there are like many languages that support the Jupyter. Example, R, Julia, Java, C++, C, Fortran. Most of those languages, I mean, you might have to install something. I'll show you, for example, how to get Jupyter work with R at the end of this workshop. So those languages you can all use with Jupyter. So it's not just for Python. So before we go forward, just I had to introduce like Alex and Marcelina. They'll be helping the folks joining through Zoom, and feel free to ask any questions in person or on Zoom. I'll try to help you. So Jupyter enables sharing and reproducing your research, right? For example, there are like Google Colab or Jupyter Hub, where you can host your Jupyter notebooks. You can either make them open to public, or you can make them open to a group of people or collaborators. You can work on the same project in that notebook, and then after you're done, you can publish it to the world, you know, like as a supplement to a publication, for example, or, you know, article. Like, for example, investigative journalists use Jupyter Notebook when they publish their article, and then they put a link to their Jupyter Notebook so that people can see what they've actually done, like the numbers or the graphs or whatever they produce. For example, I have this. So by the way, you'll all get a copy of this notebook at the like in a couple of days, I believe, with the recording of the workshop. So you will be able to see what the link is. So this is an example Jupyter notebook that's published by LIGO Group, who's worked on the gravitational lensing, right? Gravitational waves. So they have like a brief description of their work and the links to their papers and the web page, and then links to download all the data to run this notebook. And then they show their analysis, right? Like all the steps they take, and like, you know, this is the complete analysis they use. I mean, this is supplement to their paper. That This is their main like publication. And somebody can download this notebook and the data and then rerun the analysis or tweak it and do their own like variations or whatever. So that's why I meant by supports like collaborative research and sharing research, or you can reproduce somebody else's research without just looking at the paper. I'm sure you know how hard it is to reproduce a paper. It takes a while sometimes because you don't have all the details. But if you have all the codes and the steps, then you can easily start from there. Right. How do we install and run Jupyter Notebook, right? So you can run your Jupyter Notebook locally in your own computer. Doesn't matter what OS you are using. If you have like Python, but you can install it, pip install Jupyter, and then launch the Jupyter server with the command Jupyter Notebook. For example, I don't think I can show it now, but I'm running this Jupyter Notebook locally on my laptop. So I use this command, Jupyter Notebook. And when you run that command, it'll spawn something like this on your web browser, right? And then if you have any notebooks, you can click on them and that will open it in a new tab. Or you can open a new notebook, Python 3. So it's a new Python notebook. So that's how you install and run the Jupyter Notebook in your own computer. If you have an RCC account, you can use our Open on Demand service to run Jupyter with the Jupyter. Let me see. If you log into Open on Demand, you can find the interactive app named Jupyter Notebook. So it's in here, interactive apps, Jupyter Notebook. And there's one thing that you have to do the first time you use this app. It's described here, and we have a link posted in this app site. And you have to do two things. Like you have to run this line. This My App is just an example. You can have any name to it. It's just creating a virtual environment and then install Jupyter app. So I will show you how to do that briefly. You can still do everything in the Open on Demand. So I just click the clusters and then click the FSU RCC HPC shell access. Right? And that gives me a shell. Is this clear on Zoom? Okay. And then, so virtual env -p Python. I'm going to give the name virtual 3 or something. So that installs the basic virtual environment in my account, and then I have to activate it. So I run this command source virtual tree. So it's all described in the documentation here. So I'm doing this step. So those are the only two things, the one-time things that I have to do. When I activate it, okay. Now I can do, let me show. I have to do the same thing, the pip install Jupyter. So that installs Jupyter Notebook, and this is, you only have to do this one time, and then after that, you're ready to use Jupyter in the open on demand environment. Just give it a minute and it'll finish. Okay, now it's ready. Now you can log out from the terminal. So everything, you don't have to change anything except this line. So this is where I installed my Jupyter. So I created the name virtual3. Don't forget to put the /bin at the end. And after you do this once, it's going to remember it the next time, so you don't have to do this again and again. So then you with the number of hours, set the number of hours, the partition, and the number of cores, and then you launch it. So this submits a job for Jupyter. And after that, after a few minutes, or depending on how long you want to run, you will get a link here. So that's how you run the Jupyter in using Open on Demand. One thing, you need a VPN if you are connecting from like home, like off-campus access. Right? Okay, and now you get the link. Okay. So this is the home screen, right? And then I can create a new Python 3 notebook. This. I leave this because I need this later. I can't find my, there you go. Okay. So okay, now we created the Jupyter, installed Jupyter and made it run. And then how do we use it, right? Like I showed you, so you can select the kernel. The kernel means the language, right? It can be Python, R, C++, Java, depending on what you have installed. So, but Python will always be available because you need Python to install Jupyter. So you select the kernel and open the new notebook. And then by default, the notebook name is untitled. So I hide the notebook name here so that I have more space. So this is the notebook name. When you open the new notebook, it's untitled here. It's untitled. But when you click on it, you can change it to something else. And the default mode of cell is like, you can see there's like a square or like a box here. So these are called cells, right? So by default, these cells are accepting codes, but you can change it to accept text, like plain text, by selecting this, going to this box and selecting Markdown. Now, Markdown is just text, right? And you still have to run it. Right? So to run, so you click the Run button. Okay. And text can be just text like this, or something more complicated like this. I can show you what made this list. If I double click on it, you can see this is how I wrote this slide. This is how I made this slide, right? So I just double click on it. You can see how the Markdown works. This is called Markdown, by the way. Markdown is the text mode. You can do you can change the title, the level. For example, if you can go here and you can change the heading level, right? I have heading level 1 here, or you can simply put a pound sign and space, and that means level 1. If I put 2 pounds here, it will be smaller, like level 2 heading. And I can either run it here like that, or I can hit Control Enter, and that also runs the cell. Yeah. By the way, if you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me, like ask me or ask Alex or Marcelina. And to toggle between the markdown and the code mode, you can use either escape M, like this is text mode, right? And to go to code mode, you have to hit escape Y or simply select code from here. So to get a list, you don't have to use the minus sign or hyphen all the time. You can use a star or something like consistent and put a space, and that will create a list. Okay, what else? Okay, so this, when you run something, I mean, this session is controlled by the kernel, right? Kernel means, so you load things, like if you're running a code, for example, if you are using Python, you load modules and, you run your code steps, right? It's all run with this kernel. But if you want to restart everything, you can just click on kernel and restart it, or restart and clear output, or there's like different options. You can, if you shut down the notebook, right? But usually, for example, if you are running in like infinite loop and you want to quit it, you can just click the kernel and interrupt it. Then whatever running is interrupted and it stopped. And if you want to restart from the beginning, you can click on restart. So after you're done with your notebook, you can export it to different forms. Like you can download it as HTML, LaTeX, Markdown, or the notebook itself, or PDF, or Python. Like you can download this as a Python code, and all the text will be they were like comments. So you can run it as a code without doing anything else. Also, you can download it as slides, like different formats. So I have a few more things here. We will see them as we go on the next sections. There are special commands, special characters. For example, the exclamation mark. It tells Jupyter that this is a shell command. Like this should be run on the system level, like system terminal. So, for example, I need to install something like matplotlib. So I can do this without going back to the terminal, right? I can do this. So I put the exclamation mark and say pip3 install matplotlib. That will run, excuse me, that will run it in the terminal, not in the notebook. Okay, let me. Also, now this, this box is not, like this cell is not big enough to show that. So if I run this now, yeah, okay. So these are some examples that you can do simple things like 1 + 2, and then the nice thing about Jupyter is that you see the output immediately versus conventional programming is, you see the output at the end of the run, right? But here you can see the output at each step, and you can use the previous step's output with the underscore. This is not a Jupyter thing, it's from Python. Even you can do that in Python terminal, but we don't do that usually, right? But in Jupyter, it's pretty useful sometimes if you're running a calculation. So if I do it here, you get, previous step is 3, so 3 plus 3 is 6. Also, you can see these inputs and outputs are like arrays, right? These are actual arrays. You can use the input in array and out arrays. You can do operations with it. For example, if I do out 48 plus 5, 11, because out 48 is 6, so 6 plus 5 is 11. So things like that. So you can look at the input, input array. Yeah. 48, 47 is 1 plus 2, things like that. So you can access the input and output like that. I mean, you can run like Python stuff like this, so like a simple for loop, You can either do control enter and it runs the cell and remain in the cell. But if you do the control, if you do the shift enter, then it'll move on to the next cell. Like, this is something I found that I think is interesting. Like, there's a spell checker in Notebook. So this is how you install it. One warning: you can't install using pip if you are on open on demand, right? Because our compute nodes are not connected to the internet. So you'll have to do the pip stuff on the terminal. So that's the only downside with that. I can show one thing. So this cell is pretty long, right? So it abbreviates the part you are seeing. But if you want to see the whole thing, you can expand it by clicking on this left side. See, now you can see the whole output. If you don't want to see this long output, you can just click on the left part and you'll see only part of it. And you can still scroll through it. There's a, you can scroll through it like this. Any questions so far? Anything? Okay. Visualizations. This is a Python visualization, just a normal graph. If you are familiar with Python, this is very simple. The only thing is you have to use this special command so that your output shows up nicely in the Jupyter notebook itself. Otherwise, it might open in a different window, right? So you have to say %. So the % character is a special character. We'll get to it in a minute. But it's a special character for notebook, and it tells Jupyter that this is something I want to do. It's called magic command. So it's a magic command. So it tells Jupyter that this is something special. So it will execute that operation. So when you make a plot, it will show up within the notebook. And when you save it and reopen this notebook, you will see all the outputs if you didn't clear it, right? You can, I'm going to run it now. Okay. And I can go here, click on cell, and clear the output. I can see the current output. I can clear it, so it goes away. If you do that, then and save it, and then if you reopen, then you will not see anything. But if you run it and just save it and reopen it, you will still see the output. So this is a simple example of interactive visualizations using Plotly. Again, this is not just Jupyter specific, but you can do this on Python. But with Jupyter, it's very handy because it's all in this notebook, and you can see you can explain something and then put the visualization after that. It's more like it makes more sense. So this is a simple example with iris dataset. You might know about it. It's about like flowers, different kinds, and um, the different species. So these are like interactive. You can look at each data point, and it shows the properties of that particular species, right? And you can just zoom in, zoom out, like that. Also, you can click on this legend and it goes away. You can look at one species or another, like that. So it's really like easy to do research or do your workflow inside the notebook, or just show it. You can save this as an HTML and then share it with someone else. They can still do the interactive part. That's a nice thing. You can insert images. Oh, okay. Before we go there, let me go back up, and so I missed one thing. For example, no, not that one. Okay, so the first one. So one more thing about the markdown. So this is how you create a link. So it's pretty easy. You put the text inside square brackets, and without putting space, then you put the brackets. Within brackets, you put the link, and it will show up as a link. So it won't show it will only show the text. So if you click on it, it opens a new tab. Excuse me, it opens a new tab, but it doesn't show the link. So that's how you do a link. One more thing, you can do HTML. That's how I did this title slide, for example. So it's this pure HTML. It's nothing fancy about it. So you can, I mean, if you know a little bit of HTML, then you can do a lot with notebooks. That's the point. Okay, so inserting images again. So that's the code. So if this image is missing, it will show RCC. Again, I put the exclamation mark. That's a special character. So I type attachment. So there's no space between the square brackets and the brackets. The attachment colon the image name, like, and that will, when you run it, it will display the image, right? Interactive widgets. Again, this is not Jupyter specific, and it's from like you can do this with Python, but then it makes more sense to include these kind of things in a notebook rather than just do it in Python, because like if you do this in like a small window, like you can do it in a window, but that's really like not very practical. But if you do this in a like HTML page like this, it's more like you can do much more with it. So you can see like this is from IPy widgets. So you can, this is a very simple function that adds two numbers, right? And display the output here. So my function is just adding x and y, right, and returning value. So interactively, I can change the x and y, and then it will show up the sum here. So if you, for example, if you create a simulation, right? If you have a simple simulation, and then you want the users to interactively change the values, right? Then you can easily do something like that here without writing like a lot of code. This is like, 3 lines of code, right? So it's not very complicated. Um, I told you like not just simple text or list. We can have like complicated text like tables, equations. This is an example. I will show you the markdown. So it's some of you might be familiar with LaTeX. This is very close to the LaTeX formatting, right? So you use the pipe symbol to separate the fields. And these characters tell Jupyter what kind of like justification, like alignment you need. So for example, 3 lines is for unjustified, colon dash colon is for left, the center align. I have a typo here. Yeah. So it shows up nicely as a table, right? You don't have to do much, It's not like you don't control the width or anything. It just automatically, format your table nicely. And you can control the look. This is just a basic example. If you, Google a little bit, you'll find out, how to change like colors and the lines and how they show up and everything. Again, if you are a LaTeX user, if you know a little bit about LaTeX, so this is the equation. It's exactly LaTeX equation. For example, if you have something in a paper publication and you want to copy and paste it, you just copy and paste it here, and then you can have your visualization or workflow embedded in the notebook, right? I just copied this from somewhere else. Anything so far? Any questions? I think these are pretty straightforward, right? So I told you a little bit about magic commands earlier. So magic commands are special commands that are used in Jupyter. Earlier we saw they start with percent sign. Okay? So there's single percent sign and double percent sign. So these are called cell magic. These are called line magic, and these are called cell magic. What are they? They are just, okay, if you do %ls magic, right, it'll show you all the magic commands available. So you can see, for example, there is there's colors, there's conda, familiar commands, right? Bookmark, cd, clear. So I'm not going into detail about each of these cell magic, but these are like maybe system commands. For example, cd is a system command. It changes directory to whichever you specify, and then maybe like copy a file, open a file, something like that. And rm can remove something like a file. So I'll show you like one example. Good example of cell magic is history, like %history. So that'll spit out all the expression, everything you did, including the commands that you deleted, including the cells you deleted. That reminds me. So if you want to insert a cell, like okay, so you go on a like you create a notebook and then you wanted to add something in the middle, right? So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can click insert and insert cell above or below. If I insert one above, so it will show up here, right? And then I do something, say 1 plus 10, something like that, and then I think, okay, I don't need this. Then I just delete it, right? To delete, you can do cell, nope, to edit and delete cells, or you can just type DD and it deletes, right? But the history will still remember what you did. So if you type %history, you can see everything, including the deleted cells, right? Everything you did. So that's the magic command. And time it is another magic command that's really nice. These are like Python profiling commands. Like you can see how long it took for a certain operation to run, or a certain part of your code, or certain code to run. But time it is a line magic, so meaning that it'll only affect this line. But if you want to see how much time it took to run like portion of like a code or fragment of a code, right? For that you put like 2% signs. So this is a cell magic which affects the whole thing. So now I am timing the entire cell, right? So it will run like 100,000 loops of this code and give you an estimate of like how much time it took, per loop, something like that. So those are like example cell magics. Yeah. Yep. So this so far we've talked about Python, right? So these are all like Python based examples. So what if you want to use R, for example, with Jupyter Notebook, right? For that, you need to install something. If you use Anaconda Python, you can use this. At least when I try, it took a while to install, like 20 minutes. So I'm not going to try it here. But if you don't have Anaconda, you can still install these two packages called, it's one package actually, called IR kernel. And we can try that. I'm going to try it on Open on Demand instance I have. I need the, I need to load R. And install I need the name. Too bad I can't. Let me close this one first. Wait. I'll need a new job. So I need install packages IR kernel. then it asks you to choose a mirror. So that installs the IR kernel, which enables you to run like R on Jupyter Notebook. And earlier when I opened a Jupyter Notebook, it only showed me like if I go here new, it only showed me Python, but this is my local computer. This has R configured. So if I choose R here, now let me see. I want to do it. Okay. Now, this might take a bit, so I will show you on my local computer. If you go new and R, select R. Now this is not a Python. You can see it's R. The kernel is R. So you can't run Python commands here. You have to use R commands. Right? I'm not R user, but I know like few things. I think. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. This is R, right? So this is not valid and not a valid Python syntax. It's an R syntax, so it works. So that's how you run R-based Jupyter Notebook. Let's see. Okay, so usually this takes a few minutes, but so the reason I didn't pre-install any of this is that I wanted to show people like how exactly to do this without just, and if you're an R user, I mean, if you want R to be used on a Jupyter, because the alternative is to use R Studio, right? So R Studio, the version we have on Jupyter or Open On Demand, you can't make plots on the latest R version. Is that right, Alex? The latest R version has a problem with the plotting, right? On R Studio, Open On Demand, yeah. But if you use Jupyter, you can still make plots with any of the R versions. Yeah, this is taking a lot longer. And after it's done installing, you can just do this inside R, and that's all. After that, that's the one-time setup, and after that, you can use, you can create R-based Jupyter notebooks. I think, that's all I have prepared for. It went a lot faster than I hoped for. But if any of you have any questions or comments, it's time.
Can I create my outputs separately? So if I want to show or share with somebody only the output so they don't see the whole thing, the input and output?
Oh, you wanted to create a notebook just to share the output? So without showing the codes, right? I haven't tried that. Let me I don't think so. No, you can hide the output, but you can't really hide the code, you know. Yeah. One thing is you can copy and paste it, you know, the output. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think, yeah, you can't like, yeah. You mean this or this one? Oh, the save figure? Oh, I see your point. Yeah, I mean, if it's like a plot, then you can do the save fig, you know, save it as a figure, right? You can save the image, right? That way you can only share the figure. But if it's just a output from a code, like a command, then you can't. Yeah, the only way is you can copy and paste it, you know, or take a picture, but that's very primitive, right? Yeah. Um, okay, so this is done, and I can just I forgot the command. So ir kernel install spec. Is it double or single? Double. Yeah, I think so. Okay, nice. Jupyter client has to be. Oh yeah. So I have to activate the virtual environment before I do the before I run that. Yeah. Now it should work. So the problem was I had to activate my virtual environment before I run R, because R needs to be connected to the Jupyter. Now it's ran. And now if I can log out now. Now if I create a Jupyter notebook, I have the same settings, right? In 1 hour, if I launch it, now I should see R as a option for a new workshop, new notebook. Sorry. Just waiting for the job to start running. So this, you can see this highlighted, you know, portions. You just put like 2 stars, 2 asterisks, and that highlights the rest of the line until you put 2 asterisks again. Okay. So now if you click new, you see R. Let me see if I have, no. Yeah. You can see the R icon. So it's R, it's not Python. So So if there's no other questions, then thank you for attending the workshop.